Destiny 2 feels worse than it did 3 weeks ago is an absolutely crazy headline to me. I had to read this article from Games Radar, which says 1,796 hours into Destiny 2 on Steam. The Edge of Fate has killed my interest in playing with one of the worst leveling systems I've seen in an MMO. One of the worst leveling systems they've ever seen. Wow. Let's see what it is here. It's Lightfall Blues all over again here in Destiny 2. The Edge of Fate had the unenviable responsibility of following the final shape, the long-awaited finale to a 10-year saga, and quite arguably the best expansion in Destiny history. Just as Lightfall fumbled it hard after the high of the Witch Queen, the Edge of Fate has landed with disappointment. It's not abysmal, but I would call it pretty bad, and I'd probably rank it at or below the level of Lightfall, because I have no real interest in playing it after finishing the campaign and trying the genuinely good raid. Okay, so we're giving praise to the raid, which I think is accurate. Like, the raid was really good. Clearly they are having a big problem with the leveling system. I want to see exactly what it is that they're upset about. The big difference this time is that this is a medium-sized expansion, the first in a line of smaller but more regular releases for Destiny 2. Expectations have to be adjusted. Additionally, where Lightfall had a bad campaign and a boring destination offset by cool new strand supers, the Edge of Fate actually has a great campaign and a solid destination. Okay, I'm actually in agreement with them here. Campaign good, destination solid, but the expansion is dragged down by a stale sandbox, repetitive content, and new gear and leveling systems, which feel like a massive step back for the game. After finishing the campaign and grinding out some new exotics and quests, my non-rating Edge of Fate experience has quickly been reduced to repeatedly running old content using worse versions of old builds in pursuit of new gear that's demonstrably worse than most of my old guns, as well as all of the tier 5 gear I would eventually unlock if I hadn't already decided to jump off this hamster wheel. There's not a lot of replayable new content. The old missions and playlists have never been creakier, and the new portal activity hub has done real damage to the feel and fantasy of Destiny 2's world by quarantining it in a sterile, artificial menu. Bungie even admitted to purposely desaturating the old destinations page, in essence the entire universe, in some misguided attempt to make the portal stand out, which feels like cutting off your thumb so your index finger really pops. They will soon resaturate it though, thankfully. The moment I caught myself farming the once amazing Whisper mission from 7 years ago just to collect throwaway gear with a slightly higher power level, I knew I was out. Yeah, I could run some other stuff instead, but I just can't microwave these leftovers again. Many of my old stomping grounds and loot routes are straight up unavailable in this new portal era, at least at lower levels. The portal feels like an appetizer that Bungie has mistakenly positioned as a main course, and I have to say, it ain't appetizing. Oh man, so harsh. So in regards to the mission, the Whisper mission and the replayable activities, you're supposed to be able to put on some modifiers to make the replayability a little less repetitive. I don't know that it's hitting home as much as Bungie would have liked. They would have preferred people to, play the Whisper mission 100 times and not feel burnt out on it, but people have already played the Whisper mission so many times that even these new modifiers, they aren't really spicing it up as much as Bungie, I guess, intended. So let's see what else they have to say. Meanwhile, the Sandbox doesn't have a fun new tentpole like Lightfall Strand or the Final Shapes Prismatic. To make matters worse, every build in my loadout collection is now significantly weaker thanks to the new armor setup. The gameplay Sandbox is just less interesting than it was 2 weeks ago. There is build crafting potential to the new armor stats, and I knew going in that there would be an adjustment period, but I wasn't prepared for Destiny 2 to suddenly become dramatically less fun to play moment to moment. Really? Wow. I haven't experienced that same level of frustration with my builds or my power overall, but I would be interested in knowing if you've had that experience in the chat. Feel free to comment your experience in terms of your power and your builds pre-Edge of Fate and post-Edge of Fate. Peerless gunplay has always been Bungie's saving grace, and that has been neutered by spongy enemies, scarce ammo, and bugs upon bugs, even more bugs. The new ammo generation system is nicely controllable, sure, but it shoehorns build crafting by all but mandating a high weapon stat, because without it, the uptime of your most enjoyable guns is dreadful. I mean, I think you just kind of have to. It's a tough one here because you should feel weaker when you have tier 1 armor than when you have tier 5 armor, right? When you're at the bottom, you're gonna feel a lot weaker than when you're at the top, and that is the power fantasy. And if you load into Edge of Fate and your tier 1 armor is good enough, you're gonna make an article and you're gonna be just as frustrated and say, I don't even need to play this. My armor from pre-Edge of Fate is just as good, so GG's, did the campaign, I'm out, you know? So it's like, you kind of have to pick your poison here, I guess. And I do like that the power fantasy is really strong right now, that tier 5 armor and weapons has some meaningful reason to get tier 5 stuff. It's pretty good. You know, it's worth your time if you're really trying to clear challenging content like contest raids and stuff. Bungie seems to have bet on systemic changes standing in for Sandbox editions, but I'd say that backfired spectacularly. It feels like Bungie has thrown our old builds in a hole that we have to build craft our way out of. Harm reduction is not exactly a back out of the box blurb for a new expansion. The ceiling for some builds is a bit higher, sure, but the floor has cratered, and the updated power system has obliterated any interest I might have had in reaching the new ceiling. Yeah, this is just in my opinion, this is just personal preference in terms of how do you want the power band to feel for Destiny 2? Do you want to feel like very weak and pathetic at the bottom and then feel ridiculously powerful, like godlike at the top? And some will say that's like a better system. Obviously, it feels weird to maybe be weaker, like in terms of like if you had like 0 grenade right now, like you probably are like straight up never get your grenade back. It might feel really odd or disorienting comparatively to 3 weeks ago. But I think that contrast incentivizes more power grind. I think the general number crunch has been healthy for Destiny 2, but the new power system is about as approachable as a mama grizzly bear near her cubs. It's a monster assembled from the worst elements of several other MMOs, but with almost none of the payoff. Wow. All right, power fantasies. Steam tells me I've played 1,769 hours of Destiny 2, though my total playtime is higher if you count consoles and Battle.net. Most of those hours were logged years ago. For a while now, I've been what I'd call a hardcore casual Destiny 2 player. I don't play a lot, but when I do play, I generally only do difficult and endgame content like raids, dungeons, and Grandmaster Nightfalls. And previously, this is where they're going to be very upset. Previously, you had the ability to kind of jump back into the game and still jump into that end game. Now, you're going to try and jump into the game, and you're going to get hit with this immediate, it's not time gating, but it's this immediate grind gate of needing to grind your power levels up before you can get back in there. This is where the game really shines, and I don't have the appetite to farm seasonal content a zillion times anymore. Though I did love me some Onslaught, an activity which, in any sane universe, would have become the new Call of Duty zombie-style cornerstone of Destiny PvE, but I digress. Bungie has supported that playstyle, which I consider the best burnout remedy, by making that content accessible and rewarding. And it did that partly by increasingly de-emphasizing power level with each expansion, until Edge of Fate, when they pulled out the reverse Uno card. I felt like we'd all realized that power serves no real purpose apart from extending an unenjoyable grind, and it could easily be removed through systemic changes that instead prioritize game feel and tangible rewards. And what he's referencing is the power grind being removed for a period of time in Destiny 2, and a lot of people praised that. However, we then were met with the criticism of, well, there's really nothing to do in the game anymore, and we saw a very big drop-off in population in general. So I think Bungie was thinking about how can we reincorporate the power grind so we can keep play session times up, keep the population of Destiny 2 a little bit higher, and maybe not just do it in a sort of meaningless way like make number bigger, but instead put a carrot at the end of that stick, and that is tier 5 rewards. Or now it's not just one prize at the end, but it's a tiered level of prize, right? So the more hours you play, the more your power goes up, and accordingly your loot gets better alongside that. Instead, the Edge of Fate has swung back 180 degrees, making power more important and more annoying than ever. It is less confusing than I'd once feared, and it's less fragmented and time-gated than Destiny 2's old Pinnacle system, but it's also less enjoyable than I'd ever imagined. Wow. As your power goes up, you get access to higher tier gear and higher difficulty activities. you increase your power by running the hardest stuff you feasibly can, using custom challenge modifiers to bump up your rewards to ensure relevant and plentiful drops. Once you hit the soft cap of 200, you get into temporary seasonal power, which will reset with future content rotations. Seasonal power is primarily gained through portal activities or higher difficulty campaign missions. So far, so MMO, right? I like that literally just play the video game is a viable path to power now, and it's cool to see the new scoring system reward proficient play, but that's about the only positive stuff I can say about the system, which is a really positive thing to say, and we should not de-emphasize too much, because getting to play the game whatever way you want, minus dungeons and raids right now, is awesome, and that will be added later to the portal system. And being rewarded for playing better is also awesome. So this incentivizes playing proficiently, right? Not just being a potato. This is good. This is exactly how the tier system should work at a fundamental level. Some of the decisions here are baffling. Your rewards are now tied to your equipped power, not the highest power across your collection, undoing years of quality of life. I actually agree with this criticism. Gear tier rewards feel inconsistent, with even the raid itself, the premier endgame activity, dropping pitiful tier 1 gear as a baseline. The road to the good stuff just feels too long. And to be fair, what they did with the raid is you load in and you clear it one time and you get tier 1 gear. And the more you complete it, the higher tiered gear you'll get. And if you complete as well the triumphs that go along with it, then you'll start to get tier 2s and tier 3s more regularly, and all the way up to tier 4s. Once the epic raid comes out, you should be able to get tier 5s. So basically they just created a system where clearing an activity one time and maybe you get the god roll, but instead you clear an activity multiple times. They basically reward you for logging in regularly and playing the game consistently, which is not necessarily a bad system in general. You could technically just get your tier 1 god roll and be done with it, right? Like there's nothing holding you back from doing that necessarily. Across the community, high-powered players have reported a rain of low-tier gear that feels wrong for their investment level. And the fact is, most people will not get to tier 5 because they don't have the stomach for it. That's true. I wonder how many people will actually hit 450 before Renegades. That'll be an interesting statistic. I've been playing this game for nearly 11 years, and even I don't have the stomach for it. And nearly all of my clanmates and raid buddies have expressed similar concerns. It sounds like a lot of people will dip out well before they hit even 400 power. Wow. To top it all off, increasing your power doesn't feel good or satisfying because most of the meaningful activities are power locked anyway, meaning you're capped at a certain power deficit that determines the difficulty level. You are not getting stronger. You are unlocking harder versions of the same content. That is an interesting dynamic to this that I feel like shouldn't be overlooked too much. It's a bit annoying when you level up so much and then you select the activity and the activity just says minus 30 power, minus 40 power, minus 20 power. So it's like, what did I power level for if the activity is going to be at minus 20 anyways, right? But the reason why that's important, and to play devil's advocate to that, is because if it's just a minus 20 activity, then you can play with your friends a little bit easier because, you know, it's a minus 20 for them as well. Like it makes the game a little more streamlined across the board. So that way people can join the same activity. I can be power level 300. You can be power level 150. We're still playing the activity at the exact same difficulty level, right? So you kind of have to pick and choose your battles here with some of the stuff. That content was released years ago in most cases, yet the portal pool also inexplicably excludes some of the best activities in the game, which they said they'll add in a few months. It's going to be dungeons and probably raids afterwards. Destiny 2 doesn't feel fresh. I have done all this stuff before. Now it's just more cumbersome and tied to a number that doesn't actually mean anything. You can't have your cake and eat it, and you can't make power simultaneously mandatory and worthless for hard content. Damn. The Edge of Fate feels precision engineered to turn off players like me who very specifically liked Destiny 2 because it didn't have the same humdrum level grind as many other MMOs. Well, they did try to make the game a little more casual with the launch of D2. It didn't do them any good. So they decided with Edge of Fate they're going to turn the gears a little farther forward. So that way the hardcore community, or at least just the regulars, have something to log into and play every day. We'll see if it's the right decision in the long run. Power is now slowly gained through repetitive content, easily lost with seasonal resets, and completely immaterial in practice. Plus, all the gear you get on the way to tier 5 is totally outclassed. I mean, not totally outclassed. We're being a little bit dramatic here, all right? If you have a tier 4 god roll of course you're going to want that tier 5 god roll still, but you'll do just fine with the tier 4. Like, you can clear challenging activities, the weapon will feel great. It's not going to be such a game changer that it's like at the tier 4 god roll is just trash compared to the tier 5. Like, let's be real here for a minute. It feels like a problem for an MMO to have all of these bugbears at once. I still have a lot of love for Destiny 2, and I'll come running back if Bungie improves the grind, but for now, there are too many good games out there for me to spend time spinning this wheel. Interesting article, definitely some valid criticism here, and we are entering a whole new era of Destiny 2, and Bungie is making the game a little more hardcore, a little more grindy. Some people are all for it though. A lot of people are referencing the D1 days when the game was even more hardcore. If you were an OG back in the D1 days, you know how hardcore it was. And maybe they're doing a similar thing where they're launching it a little more hardcore than it will be in 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now. Kind of a similar element, you know, to that. Only time will tell. Do I think that they're going to adjust the leveling system? They might a little bit. They might lower the bar a little bit because of all the criticism and backlash. And in that situation, you know, they might get a lot of praise, and maybe they'll win some players coming back and grinding their power level up if they increase all the drops, you know, maybe +4s to +5s, whatever it may be across the board. Who knows what they're going to do? But definitely a lot of people are sounding off, so feel free to give your opinion as well down in the comments. And that's a wrap on this one. Make sure to subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Later.